Hey everybody, this is Brett Grayson of Tactical Pay Radio, reminding you that the podcast you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the great content at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, the slayer of non-threats, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. All too often, gun owners and gun culture are portrayed in the worst possible ways in the media. This podcast aims to counter that narrative by shining a light on the members of gun culture who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Today you're going to meet one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank our good friends, G4G Guns. After surviving an attempted kidnapping and having co-workers robbed at gunpoint, Patrick and Cassie Coburn decided to get a gun for protection, and that led them to teach others about the need to protect themselves and to be proficient with firearms, and that led to the creation of G4G Guns. It's an amazing store and an even more amazing website where you can shop for any gun, ammunition, accessories from the comfort of your own home and buy without any gimmicks or credit card fees. If you want the personal touch, visit their store at 175 Bear Road in Van Alstyne, Texas, or stop by and see them at a gun show near you on the weekends. They're great people. They offer great service, great prices, an amazing selection, and no hidden fees or gimmicks. Check them out at g4gguns.com. That's G, the number 4, gguns.com. G4G Guns, the galaxy for great guns. g4gguns.com. Our special guest today is Simon Cote from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. Simon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
But you're originally from the Great White North, I understand it. Tell us a little about yourself, where you're originally from, and what you do for a living now that you're in Beaver Falls.
Yeah, I'm from Quebec, Canada, the French part of Canada. Moved from there about 20 years ago, came down to the States and for work, and ended up sticking around, and now I'm running a construction company out of Beaver Falls, PA.
Very cool. So where did the interest in guns come from? I know the gun culture is a little different, or at least gun law is a little different in Canada compared to the U.S. Did you grow up hunting? Were you around guns as a kid, or is that an interest that you developed once you came to the United States?
Well, like you said, obviously the gun laws are different up there. I was raised around hunting guns, long guns. So I started shooting 22s and 20 gauge, and bird hunting, moose hunting, obviously with a 30-06. Then in the States, only a couple years ago in 2016 that I got introduced to a pistol. I wanted to get my concealed carry permit, and one of my good friends took me under his wings and taught me how to shoot. And so I got into that the pistol shooting part of it.
So what was the first handgun that you bought for yourself?
Actually, it was a Glock 27, a 40 caliber, which was a little jumpy in my small hands, to be honest with you. It was not the easiest. He was not the easiest to learn how to shoot with. And then I switched to the 34 to shoot IDPA with.
I started to say you started with the really hard stuff to shoot, so the 34 should be much easier.
Yeah, it was much smoother. Let's put it that way.
So did this same friend introduce you to IDPA? How did you get interested in or introduced to competitive shooting?
Actually, yes. My friend Dave, he said, "Hey, we're shooting pistol matches." I'm like, "What is that?" Right? And I went. He's like, "Just bring this, which you'll be fine." And I shot that, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is fun!" And he got me all gear up, and I got into IDPA, and then he He's like, well, you want to be a member, all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, and get classified, and then it went on.
Do you remember that very first local match that you went to with your friend?
Absolutely. He asked me, he said, you want to shoot it again? I'm like, I can't. I can't. I'm done. I've been focused so much that the gun handling part of it, the safety part of it. Everybody's like, oh yeah, you just have to be safe. Everything will be all right. Well, after 5 little stages, I'm like, all right, I'm good. And it was funny.
You were just telling me a moment ago about how you've amputated both of your thumbs. How did this happen, and how does that affect your shooting?
Just the left one.
Okay.
Because I cut it off with the right hand, right?
Oh.
I was holding the saw with my right hand. Yeah, I cut it off with a skill saw back in Rock Hill, South Carolina in 2001. So usually that's the first thing that people notice is I put my mags bullet backwards instead of forwards. So it kind of changed the way I reload a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
On the gun itself, it doesn't actually, it makes no difference because you guys, I mean, if you're right-handed, your left thumb is only in the way. It's just in the way. You know what I mean? So I don't have it, so that's kind of good, except when I reload. So I got a different little tweak.
So how do you do that? Walk me through this. How does it work for you, and why does it work?
All right. So everybody's taught to put their index finger in the front of the magazine. What I do is my index finger is on the side of the magazine. So when I bring it's instead of rotating the mag in, it goes right in. So
oh wow, okay.
It's a little different way to do it. I mean, I can't the other way. It just flops right. I mean, it flops right out of my hand.
Right.
And I took some classes with Mike Seeklander, and the first thing he was pointing at my mag pouch is like, "You cannot do that." And when I turned around and he saw my hand, he's like, "Oh, that's why." So yeah.
That's really interesting. So on top of being new to pistol shooting, you also had to develop and really hone this technique of, because nobody teaches this, obviously, because most people have the thumb to work with. So like you said, everybody's trying to teach you to index with the index finger. Was this a lot of sort of trial and error, or how did you come up with the you couldn't watch videos, so
yeah.
What were you?
When I first got introduced, obviously they told me, all right, you put your bullet forward, and then this is how you reload, and then the magazine was flying out of my hand. So my buddy's like, well, try putting that the other way and see how it goes. And then I'm like, all right, how this works. And that's how we kind of perfected the way of doing that reload that way. And even after 6 or 8 months trying to get faster, I was like, well, now that I'm more familiar with the gun, let's flip it back around, see if I can do it. And then it didn't work out. So when you have a guy that's missing his left thumb and it's French Canadian on the range, usually they remember the guy next time around, right?
Right. Now you can't stop shooting. Now you're like it was, if I read correctly in your bio at idpa.com, it was a little over a year later and you made Master?
Yeah, I 13 months after I took I got IDPA membership, I ended up winning Division Champ on a sanctioned match. So yeah, it was a steep, uphill thing, and then after that, I had to shoot with the Masters, which I was a little unprepared for.
Right, you start out in the big pond, and then jump straight to the to the small pond with all the masters. That's quite a jump. How did that transition happen? Had you shot? How much shooting had you done between the first local match in 5 stages in 2016 to that sanctioned match win? How much shooting had you done in between?
All right, I don't know if that's a secret. I worn out a Glock barrel. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I shot like 70,000 rounds. The credit's not all mine. I took some classes with now it became a good friend of mine, Morgan Allen. He really took me under his wing and coached me and showed me how to do it and got to be efficient. So I got to give him credit for that.
Between Morgan Allen and 60,000 rounds, I am. That's what was. Did you shoot a lot of local matches? Did you have a regular practice routine? What was the preparation like? The work that went into going from the novice at that first match to master, division champion at your first. Was that your first sanctioned match that you shot, or?
No, my first sanctioned match was a Michigan State match, and I actually thought about quitting after that match because it made me very humble. I was like 125 points down, and it was bad. But I kind of crumbled under the pressure, I guess. What actually took me all the way there is in PA we can shoot local matches every weekend within 45 to an hour drive. So
right.
I started shooting every weekend, and in between I was going with my buddy, and then he was teaching me all the fundamentals and how to actually hit stuff, and I just dived right into it.
So tell us again so Michigan State, how long after the first local match, how long after that was that Michigan State match that you went to?
I started shooting in April 2016. So Michigan was in August. Then I went to Delaware State match, was my first bump to sharpshooter. And then it was supposed to be the off season after that. Well, I went and trained with Morgan in Charlotte, and I signed up for the indoor national. So the off season ended up being like an on season, full training outside all winter to get to the indoor and bump to expert there. And it just went on, and then I shot the it was the Vengeance in the Valley in PA that I made division champ.
Very nice. What do you remember about that match? Was there any particular you remember about the stages or about your performance? Was there anything? What do you remember from that day?
Actually, that day, I didn't think I shot that well. I shot a steady match. Very few little mistakes, but steady. But I was like, it seems very slow, And I remember after getting the interim score, text Morgan, and Morgan's like, "Well, I think you're in a good place right now." I said, "We'll see how it stands, right?" And ended up on top, so it was pretty awesome.
Very cool. What division and are you competing in most often? What division was your master? Your division championship in, and what gun do you compete with now? Is it still the 34?
No, I made master with the 34 in the SSP, and then now I'm shooting a CZ. So I got an SPO1 and an AQ Shadow. So I shoot the AQ Shadow in the ESP, and the SPO1 Shadow in SSP.
So have you to go from now? I know you put a lot of rounds down range in that 13 months. Have you always been kind of had a competitive streak in you? Not everybody jumps right into any sport or hobby where they dedicate that much time and that much ammunition in 13 months to get that good. Were you always competitive growing up, or was it just you were thoroughly hooked in this IDPA thing?
Actually, I was not competitive until I started shooting IDPA and the other sport. Believe it or not, I'm a workaholic, so I always work, like, dive into whatever I do. So when that happened, obviously I can say I went to a little bit to the extreme of, but I just love it. So
yeah, when I hear Bob Vogel talking about, shooting 25,000 or 30,000 rounds, and then I hear you shot 60,000, that's just like astronomically different level.
Well, and I got hurt.
Dedication.
I got hurt doing it. I mean, my tendons, elbows, last year it was bad, but I'm good now.
No surgery, nothing like that, or
Nope.
just some rest.
Yeah, and some extender the little rubber bands things, just to release the tension in your elbows. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what is your practice routine? What is practice like for you now? Now that you've made master and you've gone through the 60,000 rounds, what was the next 13 months of practice like? Obviously, you were injured. How much did that affect practice? And now that you're good and have gotten past those injuries, are you back to that same pace where you're probably going to shoot 60,000 rounds again, or have you figured out a practice routine that you stick to regularly?
No, I'm not gonna shoot 60,000 rounds this year. But probably 30,000. Like 500 rounds a week.
Right.
Between a small match and a practice session. I obviously got into the dry fire stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of in the house every day dry fire practice to, different drill, different stuff. I mix that with Mike Seeklander's book and different drills, and that's basically what I go by.
How often do you go to the range for live fire? What do you think is a good balance between live fire and dry fire? And when you are live fire practicing, what's that practice routine like?
Well, I gotta tell you, I own a small excavating business, so I built myself a bay where I keep my equipment at. So when I go there, I'll practice a lot of entry and exit, some things that you cannot really practice in the house very much.
Mm-hmm.
The longer movement, the wider transitions, and I'll fire a few rounds at the plate rack, just to get the speed in.
Well, you made everybody who's listening jealous that you can just go out to your
and
own.
I'm sure that my Facebook page is gonna fill up with like, when am I gonna get invited to this range, right? But my buddy comes with me in practice.
So, what kind of stages, what kind of matches do you like? Are you do you like the really fast, lots of movement? Do you prefer sort of hoser stages where you can shoot a lot really fast? Do you like the things where you have to think a lot and plan it all out? What kind of if you were building a match, what would your favorite stages be like?
All right, your questions get twofold. I did build a couple matches because when you get into that momentum of IDPA, someone grabs you and say, "Hey, I need some help." So obviously,
right.
I ended up assistant match director last year, and we did put the Rust Belt Championship 2 years in a row.
Nice.
So, and I helped putting the stages together. I always like to have the different type of challengers mixed into the whole match. Like a table draw here, an empty start over here, longer shot on this stage, a little more fast and furious on that one. So I like to mix it up. What I like to see when I go to a match, for me, I think is an advantage if you can move real fast from one position to the other, and really tight, precise shots. I think it gives me an advantage more than the hoser USPSA like spray and pray, and then you'll see what you get. So that's where I'm at now.
So since starting in 2016, is there one or two moments or stages or funny things, interesting things that happen that stand out from all the IDPA that you've been involved in the last couple or 3 years now?
There was a stage at National this year that I shot, and I mean, being humble, people were like cheering after I shot. I'm like, come on, guys, right? Sometimes it goes well, right? And I remember when I shot the indoor national, I was so freaking stressed out that I not even talked to my buddies all day long. They were like, you were like a zombie, because I was just in my bubble all day long, and put a lot of effort into it, get a focus. I'm a social kind of guy, so sometimes when I socialize too much and I lose track of what I'm supposed to be doing, so it's a balance in between. That's
always tough. And how do you balance that? Do you sort of separate yourself and from your squad mates and sort of focus on your game plan when you're getting close to shooting? Do you socialize a lot more? Do you completely, like you said, get in the bubble and sort of shut everything else out throughout the entire match? How do you deal with that mental aspect of it and the socializing?
I'll be honest,
because it can be distracting.
Absolutely. I'll be honest with you. That's probably my biggest challenge right now, to stay focused and not to. So sometimes I'll pick a squad that I don't know anybody in for that reason. But also when I go to, like this weekend, I'm going to Maryland shoot, and I'm going to be shooting with my good buddy that's very hard to beat. So and I'll be on the same squad, so I'll have to keep myself in check, so I don't know how to do it. It's just sometimes it doesn't work that well. Sometimes I just can't focus, especially when you get in the hole. I try to just isolate myself from what's going on outside, and after I just shoot, I go and fill my mags up and try to get that out of my head, and then I'll go and tape, so I'm okay, and then until the next time. So
you could always pretend you can't speak English and just speak French to everybody so that they won't bother you, and then you can focus in.
That's funny you said that. When I count my rounds up to my reload, I count in French. It's just something I do all the time. It's just
really,
and then and my buddy is like, oh yeah, there's Simon counting in French again, un, deux, trois, quatre, so they think it's funny.
You're a family man? Your kids, your wife, your kids interested in shooting?
Yes. My wife comes to the range once in a while. She'll shoot like 2 IDPA match a year, local little match, just to support me, I guess. My little girl, both my kids are American, so they're from the South. So it's kind of an interesting mix. My son was from Charlotte, born in Charlotte. My daughter born in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they both like to shoot. I take my little girl to steel challenges. She actually was with me this weekend. I wanted to take some videos of some training to see exactly what I was doing. So she came with me, and I get her to shoot. My son, he picked up the PCC, and now he thinks that's the stuff. He's like, "Oh, that's much easier." I said, "Yeah, right. Obviously, it's much easier." So now he can compete with me, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're shooting a rifle, buddy." But it's funny, right?
Yep. That's great. So what is it that got you hooked? What is it that you love about this sport that would motivate you to put as much time into it, all the time spent practicing and all the rounds down range and the work as assistant match director and designing stages? What is it you love about IDPA, and what do you tell people who ask you about when they say, well, what did you do this weekend? What do you tell them about IDPA?
Well, the first thing is when I first went, I asked my friend. I said, I need a hobby, because I didn't have any hobby. All right, I just work and work and work all the time, 6-7 days a week. He's like, oh, I got something that's gonna put your mind off work. It's like, if you run with a loaded gun, you're not gonna be thinking about work, which turned out to be true. And I kind of fell in love with the sport, and I just love it. I mean, I don't know if that's in my family gene from before, because my uncle was in the Canadian team of rifle team, and he went to England like 5 or 6 times on the Canadian team, shooting long range, like the 1,000-meter stuff. I'm not into that, but so I don't know if that was in the gene from before, and I just happened to like it a lot.
And what do you tell someone who says, yeah, that sounds pretty cool? What's that all about? I don't know whether I'm good enough to do that. I don't know whether a lot of people, I've heard people say, well, I need some more practice before I come to a match. What do you tell people who show a little interest, or they like shooting, but they've never been out to a match and they're a little hesitant?
Well, I always tell them, look, if you want to get good, you need to shoot. If you want to shoot, it's not going by yourself shooting at a paper plate. You come here, you start shooting at those targets one after the other. Don't worry too much about the timer, and then you'll see when the momentum that comes around it, plus the camaraderie. Everybody at every IDPA match are always helping each other, right? They're always like, all right, you can do this, or I'll offer some tips, and sometimes, I'll ask, you want me to help you or not? If you don't want me to help, that's fine. I'm fine with that. And then most people's like, yeah, how do you do this? And then now that they kind of know me, they'll be like, how are you going to shoot this, Simon? I'm like, well, this is what I think I'm going to do. And then it's by helping, And then if you want to get good at shooting, you got to shoot.
Yep.
And so it kind of goes together.
All right. Well, Simon, I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. It's been a pleasure, and hope to meet you at a match one day. Thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, sir.
All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much to our special guest for coming on the show. If you know somebody in the IDPA community who deserves some recognition, I'd love to talk to them. Send me an email at Lloyd, LLOYD, at unloadpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode and listen to past episodes at unloadpodcast.com. And if you like what you hear on the show and you'd like to support us, help keep the lights on, pay the bills, we would love your support. Visit patreon.com/unload and make a small monthly contribution to help continue what we're doing here. Tune in again next week for another edition of Unload and Show Clear.